plays with them big names and them big buildings. That's big business. Hit 10, but that's big pimpin'. My potential, that's infinite. Pin game insane. Make hits like King Griffin, a 10th inning.
Welcome to episode 13, lucky number 13 of the 10th Inning Podcast. I'm Sean. He's Dan.
I got a cat shit in front of me right now. Right beneath my legs, he's taking a... That's a piss. That's a piss.
Folks, I can't think of a better way to start off an episode. How you doing, Dan, aside from your situation you're in?
Well, listen, I love Thunder. You know, everyone defecates, right? So let's. What I'd like to do to start the show is normalize using the bathroom. You know, such a taboo topic. People get uncomfortable talking about it, but everyone does it, right? Everyone's got a butthole. Everyone has an area where they pee from, and it's okay. It's okay to go to the bathroom.
I gotta be honest with you, I was not anticipating this to come up at all during the show, but thank you. And we didn't even get into your background and your hat at the moment. So I mean, wow, we were just off with flying colors.
Yeah, my door's gonna keep banging like that because I opened the window. For some reason, I find it hot even though it's the middle of the winter. I'm just fixing that, but you go. You keep going, Sean. None of this is cut. No edits.
This might be one of the most interesting starts to an episode. By the way, I like the Logic sweatshirt. You know,
Thank you.
R.I.P. to Logic. He kind of sucks now. Anyway, in this episode, we're going to be going over kind of more the nuance aspects of baseball in the off season and how it pertains to our current situation with the lockout. Which I guess we might want to start off with the lockout. I was reading some stuff earlier. Major League Baseball has so far been pretty much unwilling to negotiate with the Players Association whatsoever. And it's not anticipated that they're going to be meeting again until January. So we could be in here for a little while. I don't know if you saw the same articles and news as I did, but I saw it actually today.
Yeah, that is, and the way you just worded it is kind of different, right, from what we spoke about last time, where it's like now the MLB is like, all right, you didn't want to talk to us. No, we're not going to talk to you. The classic go back in kindergarten here, folks, unfortunately. And the MLB knows they want to let the players suffer a little bit, sit in their own doo-doo for a little bit and see how it feels because they kind of, in the MLB's view, they brought this upon themselves by not being willing to negotiate whatsoever. So
yeah,
they're going to make sure they feel it. So hopefully this never happens again. Again, there's merits to both sides, but it is unfortunate. The only people that suffer are the fans for the most part.
Yeah, in any situation, always. I think this might be a good time to jump right into talking about the collective bargaining agreement, CBA, as it's commonly referred to as. So I know Dan and I both did our research. We do research before this podcast, believe it or not, we do. No, okay. So I'll start off just something I found, just basic. A typical collective bargaining agreement is about 5 years in length. And I guess maybe we should get into what collective bargaining agreement is for those who may not know. Do you want to take this away?
Being frank with everybody, this specific topic I didn't research, but I already knew it, so that's why.
Yeah.
So if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I'm 99.99999% sure I got it right. So the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, is just a negotiation, a contract agreement between the players and the teams, or Major League Baseball, which is the teams are under Major League Baseball. The players are under the teams and Major League Baseball. So it's just like any contract negotiation would be with any employer-employee, contract, or what are they called? Unions, just like any other union situation where you negotiate minimums, minimum salaries for your employees, certain rules, benefits that employees can get, safety precautionary stuff, anything that would affect a player's livelihood or the way they get paid or what they do at their job. Their job just happens to be sports. So those kind of situations and the rules within a CBA might be different than what you would see at like an accounting firm, but it's fairly basic across any career path.
That was put quite eloquently and beautifully by you, Dan. That hat is fitting you very well. So as I said before, a typical collective bargaining agreement is about 5 years in length. And this is the first labor stoppage since, I believe, the 90s, 94, when they had the lockout and there was no World Series champion crowned that year. But yeah, no, it's obviously 5 years, if you think about it, is not that long of a period of time for a labor agreement.
Right.
When if you think about it, 5 years comes up quick. And the last negotiation, when they agreed on the new CBA, there was kind of the assumption that the next time that this contract came up, it was going to be an issue, and it is at the moment a big issue that both sides are kind of digging their heels in the dirt and haven't really budged whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's 5 years is not a lot of time when you do think about it, but in the same sense, when you're talking about the topic you're talking about, which is labor,
Yeah.
5 years can be a universe of different.
Yeah.
I mean, what the average salary, could have been 5 years ago as opposed to what it is now, based on inflation rates and such. Obviously, right now, I'm not going to get political or economic here, but
Yeah.
even compounded right now in the situation we're in, coming off the pandemic when so much money was printed. But like, it's always different. It continually changes year by year by year. And socially, like a lot of the stuff, a lot of rules that get put into place in the CBA type things are for employees and their social stuff, right? How do the players feel about certain situations? Do they want funding towards certain programs that they are interested in, such as Black Lives Matter, or things for women's rights, for women's sports? Like, all this kind of stuff comes up as just the social spheres changes, and 5 years is a long time. 5 years ago, I think a lot of stuff was different, right, Sean? Even you could say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Just for the sports, it seems like 5 years flies by so quick,
For sports,
and from a
does
fan's
fly.
perspective,
Perspective, it absolutely does.
Yeah, you kind of touched upon this, but I didn't want to cut you off. If you had anything else to say about the subject?
Nope, I'm good on that.
Something we also wanted to cover was the minimum salary of an NBA, MLB player, which was actually a little bit lower than I thought it was going to be.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I do mean to cut you off. Could I just get a timeout for a second, Sean?
Absolutely.
Was there a Freudian slip? Do you have another podcast with someone else about? Are you doing another sports podcast, Sean?
No.
Because you said NBA. How many podcasts have you done today, Sean?
No, this is the only podcast I did, but I actually, ironically, was in a business of the NFL class, not NBA, NFL, and we had to do a contract negotiation this past week. So I don't know why I said NBA. NFL would probably been the most likely thing to come out of my mouth. By the way, I got Jameis Winston, or me and my group got Jameis Winston a fantastic contract. Anyway, yeah, no, MLB, not NBA.
Let me know.
What was that?
Whenever you want to plug your secret podcast, let me know, Sean.
This is the only podcast I have.
$570,500.
Yep.
There you go. I can't even say it.
But do you know how much it's increased over the last 18 years?
Can I take a guess?
Take a guess.
Man, 18. What year was 18 years ago? Did you tell me that?
2003.
I'm gonna say 2003. It was 150,000. I don't know what the difference between it is. That's my guess, though.
90%. It's increased 90% since then. I don't have the exact total, nor am I good enough at math to do that at the moment. Yeah. But I don't think you're very far off. It's something I could probably look up right now.
I feel decent about that answer.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds pretty well. I was within this article I found, or had the stats based off of minimum salary base. It's something along the lines of, I think, less than half the players in the major leagues make less than $1 million, which obviously the totals are skewed when you guys got guys like Mike Trout and Francisco Lindor and those guys, signing with contracts close to $400 million.
Right.
But that's kind of something that I you don't think about too much, but it makes sense because you have guys getting called up all the time who are making $500K a year.
Yeah. That is something that that obviously has came up again, going back to the CBA, that the Players Association would really like to get up. I haven't heard what number. Have you heard what number they're fighting to get to?
I have not. So far, the details about what they're looking for are pretty under wraps, pretty well kept at the moment. I'm sure we'll start to hear it as time goes on. But no, I haven't heard it specific yet.
I'm wondering what they're looking for, like how big of an increase they want. I could see up to like $1.5 million, maybe. I could see, but I
Yeah.
doubt Major League Baseball would
That's
go over
that's
$1
a
million.
major jump.
I doubt they would go over $1 million, but I
Maybe
could
like
see them
750?
fighting for that.
Maybe like 750 is where they meet. I don't know. I don't see the owners coming close to $1 million for a minimum contract.
Yeah,
Frankly, I don't know if a minor league player getting $1 million is something I'd like to see.
right.
You know what I mean? Like that just seems personally like a lot of money for a guy. Obviously, if you get called up, you have to, accrue service time and all that.
Yeah,
But that's a lot.
it is a lot. It is a lot, but owners make a lot. At the end of the day, they make a lot. I'm gonna sneeze you.
Bless
A
you.
lot of money.
Yeah, they do. And the valuations of sports franchise in general keep increasing dramatically. I believe that I think there's only a few teams. I could be way off. There's only a few major league teams that are worth under $1 billion, I believe.
I don't think
I
you're
could be
that
way
far
off with that, but I know there's at least like 15 that are more than $1 billion.
Yeah, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but as much as I feel like, wow, it's crazy for someone that just got called up to make $1 million, this doesn't directly correlate to them, but someone like just like Judge per se, or even Trout. Let's take Trout because Judge is an even worse example because he's been getting a minimum because he came up so late. But Trout, who gets 40 million a year, when you calculate how much he brings to an organization, like how much his value is, it's like 10x that. Like he's bringing in like just insane amount of money to where, that's why people say, well, they should get paid more. And it is a very uncomfortable topic. It's like, how much should they get paid? But at the same time, they do bring, and 10x was a little bit of an exaggeration. But Mike Trout provides much more than $40 million to the Angels per season.
Yes. Merchandise, TV, primetime games, those sponsorships, all that.
Ticket sales, and it's hard to calculate it, but I mean, even with just merch and jersey sales alone, it's pretty staggering how much these players bring in.
Another very interesting thing we've heard a lot about in the past few years is minor league players trying to get more money in the minor leagues because they get paid next to nothing.
I'm more for because
absolutely.
You're losing guys. You're just not. I mean, guys cannot sustain themselves. Like there's probably plenty of really good players, all-star caliber players who just dipped just because they could not wait it out. You think about people coming overseas, if they don't get that big contract right away, they just can't. They would not be able to come and play baseball.
No, I mean, the accommodations they have, like hotels and stuff. I mean, the travel on buses, and most of these guys don't make it to the majors, or if they do, it's a short time period that they're there. That's something we've seen a lot in the past couple of years. Conversations about that, and I believe that they did increase the minor league wages at least a little bit within the past few seasons. Because those guys have it tough down there, and let's say they don't make it, they got no money in the bank. You know what I mean? They're kind of in a tough spot. They played baseball their whole lives, and now that's taken away from them. What are they going to do?
Yeah, no, I mean, you figure if you're investing in young talent in the way that the MLB does, the fact that they wouldn't invest in their own personal systems is pretty wild, if you're asking me.
And they just cut a lot of teams too. They just downsized the whole minor league system quite a bit.
The team that I was working for, the Tampa Bay Rays affiliate, Hudson Valley Renegades, they didn't get cut, but they got moved to the Yankees, which is just such a weird situation where they just moved a team over. But that was part of the whole shrinking and consolidation of minor league teams. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, geographically that makes more sense. The Yankees, I guess.
It does because they were in Hudson Valley, which is New York,
and Tampa's kind of far, but just an opinion.
I hear you. All right, I hear you. So I know that I had said that I was going to, and this whole time I'm really trying to look up how much Mike Trout sold in Jersey, and I just can't find it. Very upset. But I said last episode I was going to completely derail it, and I wasn't able to.
That was service time, right?
That was service time. A little bit of a manippy sometimes goes on. Did you want to get into that now or hold off on that a little bit?
Why no time like the present, you know?
And listen, I hear that, kid. I hear that for sure. What I'm going to do, folks, is something you're used to. I haven't done it in a while, though. I feel like I'm going to share my screen. And I am going to completely derail this entire podcast.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
So as I said, I'm going to completely derail this entire thing. And I'm going to force you guys to watch my my current event project, which was based on service time manipulation. So enjoy the next 6 minutes and 37 seconds. Sean, I'll see you. I'll see you in a little bit. Kick back and relax. Why don't you?
Professor Vario here.
Here we go. My current event article. I'm going to be discussing the upcoming CBA between the MLB and the MLBPA. It's going to be revolving around this article by Matt Snyder. MLB players respond to Kevin Mather's service time comments and preview the upcoming CBA fight. So, what is a CBA? A collective bargaining agreement is a written legal contract between an employer and a union representing the employees. So, for this case, in the case of Major League Baseball, it's the owners versus the players. Owners need to make sure that the players are providing the value that they're paying for while staying within the guidelines that they are given, and the players need to make sure that they're paid accordingly and fairly and not taken advantage of in either way. So the two heads of these organizations are Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, technically works for the owners, and Tony Clark, the chief of the MLBPA, the Major League Baseball Players Association. He works for the players. One of the biggest things that will be discussed in the upcoming CBA is player time manipulation, because it has kind of ran rampant the last 3 to 5 years. So the first thing we need to discuss is what rule currently is allowing player time manipulation to occur. That would be the Super 2 rule. The definition for this is players typically must accrue 3 years of Major League service time, with 1 year of service time equal 172 days on the 25-man roster or the Major League injured list to become eligible for salary arbitration. The way free agency works in Major League Baseball is once a player is added to the 25-man roster, or in other words, brought up to the major leagues, they have a service time clock that starts ticking and does not stop ticking. Now, I will pause here and say it is a 26-man roster now. That has changed since then, believe it or not. So for the first 3 years, the club have complete control, which means you're going to get the minimum contract salary. And for the next 3 years, players go under arbitration, which means their salary is negotiated between them and the owners, and an arbiter decides what the fair value is. And they use comps or other players' salaries that are similar to their skill level to decide that. The problem is this magic number of 172. This is what's being manipulated. So owners are not incentivized to bring up talented young players that could positively impact their teams now, because if they do, after 6 years, they become free agents. However, if they wait about a month into the season, the maximum amount of service days a player can accrue is 171, which works absolutely perfectly for the major league owners, because what they will do is they will wait that month, and then after 6 years of that player being on their team and giving them all they have under club control, they will have 5 years and 171 days of MLB service time. 1 day short of becoming a free agent. This means that they're only arbitration eligible for that next year as well. This not only has become an ethical issue because it's taking away a player's opportunity to have free will to decide where he wants to play and how much money he can make, as well as a Major League Baseball issue and a product issue, because owners are not incentivized to put the best product on the field all the time. Although this has been taking place pretty consistently the last 3 to 5 years and has been a topic of discussion, it was recently kicked up to another level because Mariners CEO Kevin Mather had an interview with a Rotary Club in Seattle and alluded to the fact, quite arrogantly, that this is something they were doing with some of their talented minor leaguers, namely Jared Kelenic, who probably will still start in the minors the first month this season for yet another year of service time manipulation, which is very aggravating because he's certainly better than 90% of the players on their team currently. But this is just a little clip of that.
there was no chance you were going to see these young players at T-Mobile Park. We weren't going to put them on the 40-man roster. We weren't going to start the service time clock. You might have seen my big tummy out there in left field. You would not have seen our young players, our prospects, playing at T-Mobile Park.
Oh, if that doesn't bother you, I don't know what will. What would I do to fix this, though? That's the bigger issue. How can we fix this? I would change it to an age-based free agent system. I think the time clock is really what's able to be manipulated, but you can't change someone's age. Why would anyone want to do this? For the players. So the free agency age would be 27. Regardless of when you come up, 27 years old is the age you reach free agency. This also helps long-term minor leaguers who might come up at 25, 26, finally given a shot. And they're able to at least cash in a little bit on their skill, because once players hit 30, they're just not getting good contracts anyway. So if a player comes up at 24, 25, they're not going to become a free agent, until 30, 31. And at that point, their value is kind of diminished, and they're never going to get paid for their prime years. This ensures that players will always get paid for their prime years, regardless of when they're brought up. And that's the biggest issue here. Why would owners be incentivized? Only 2 years of arbitration. So arbitration would move to 25 and 26. They would get an extra year of club control and the classic, 21, 22 bring up. Although arbitration is a positive, owners would rather have more years of club control. So if you're telling an owner that you can bring up a player at 20, you can get 5 years of paying them the minimum, I think they would absolutely jump at that chance. And last but not least, the MLB incentive. This would ensure the best product is on the field, plain and simple. It's too often that great minor leaguers are kept in the minor leagues, even though they would be really enjoyable to watch for fans. They're really hyped. They would make their teams better. But there's just no incentive to bring them up as quickly as possible, because you rather have them when they're going to be further into their prime and when your team is better suited to succeed. I'm really hoping this is something that they move towards in the CBA, so we can stop seeing so many great players like Jared Kelenic be held back, even though they would be great MLB contributors right now. Incentivize winning again. That's the biggest thing in all sports, really, is the fight to incentivize winning. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.
Great job. It was kind of unnerving seeing two Dans on the screen at once. I didn't know what was going on first.
I'm sorry. I can't even imagine how that.
It's okay. It's okay. You raised some very interesting points in that presentation, especially, top of the list for me would be the age-based free agency.
How'd that tickle your peach a little bit?
That's I have never heard that one before, honestly. So you're the first one to bring that up to me, at least.
Hey, that was my own thought process. I'm not sure how great of an idea it is. I'm sure there's plenty of issues with it, considering I made it up, but something has to be done. So that was my best attempt at fixing it. But I certainly don't work for Major League Baseball, and I'm sure there's a reason for it.
Well, there's a reason Major League Baseball is on a downturn, so
Yeah,
they should bring in. So we are looking for a job. So
right. No, please hire me. Like, I don't, I'd love it. Hopefully they see this,
Oh, I mean, who doesn't see this? That's the better question.
But I guess I also went into the CBA and a couple of the rules there as well, which was I guess good to highlight again. Any other points or questions or?
I don't think so. I think you did a pretty bang up job on covering that. I hope you got 100 on that project. I really do.
I think I got like a 95, which was a little bit. I felt a little fucked.
Probably was a San Fran Giants fan because I saw the Dodger hat.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. It's a little bit upsetting.
Well, you also kind of expressed a little bit about arbitration.
I did. I was going to say let's swindle into that for a little bit.
So yeah, I mean, since you did your little presentation on that, why don't you just lay out what arbitration is for those who may not know?
Sure. So arbitration is what happens in years 4 through 6. Like I somewhat alluded to, the first 3 years, players get the minimum, which Sean and I elegantly said, I think we both said it beautifully, is
Oh, of course.
570, 500, $570,500 is the minimum salary. Get that for the first 3 years. Years 4 through 6, you get arbitration, which is when a player's like, I'm certainly worth more than 570,000, and the team's like, yeah, but how much? And the player's like, well, I think this, and the team's like, nah, all right, calm down. I think it's more closer to this, and then they give it to someone who is a salary arbiter, I believe they're called.
Arbitrator, yeah.
Arbitrator. Thank you, arbitrator. I'm used to the arbiter for an umpire. Salary arbitrator, and they basically the player and the owner, by the way, they have a time in which they can negotiate, but eventually that time goes away, and then they individually submit their numbers to the arbitrator, so that the player and the team do not know what their final submission is of what they feel that they are, and the arbitrator kind of comes to a consensus, and if the teams is too low, it goes with the players. If the players is too low, it goes with the teams. Comes somewhere in the middle. That's really it.
Yeah, it's a process that players don't exactly look forward to, because
No.
the team will bring up any kind of negative aspect that you personally, professionally on the field, they'll anything to get the dollar down, knocked down a little bit, they'll bring it up, and creates a bit of could sour a relationship pretty quickly.
It certainly could. I mean,
both sides want to avoid it, is what I'm saying, for sure.
Right, and that's why you see a lot of contract extensions around those arbitration years, because it's like, we're going into a negotiation. I'm literally going to have to tell you why I think you're worth less than you're worth, or why I think I'm worth more than you think I am. And that, I mean, no matter what, is going to bring up, bad emotions. One thing I just want to highlight, I know I did speak about the Super 2 rule a little bit in my little presentation there, and says that I alluded to that, how it can affect negatively service time manipulation, but it was put in place to help it. And the only way it does is this reason. As far as 172 being the magic number, it is to a degree, but there is the Super 2 rule, which is somewhat what I alluded to, which is if you have 2 years and 130 days, and you're like in the top 22% of major league talent, you're eligible for arbitration in that second year instead of in that third year instead of that fourth year. So that just helps like really talented players not to have to pay, not to have to make the minimum, and to reach arbitration earlier for people who have gone through service time manipulation. But at the same point, teams will just wait another 2 months, which we've seen players brought up at the end of the year. When that happens, instead of the first month when it's brought up at the end of the month, that's to get around the Super 2 rule, because then they just play 129 days in that season. So, I mean, no matter what happens, they're always going to get screwed.
Yeah, and to make, further make your point that this is such a common practice in baseball, Pete Alonso made the Mets opening day roster in 2019. He was a rookie. That was huge news, because the most teams would have, honestly, I kind of hope the Mets weren't going to bring him out right away just for that extra year of control.
Yeah.
From a team aspect and a fan aspect, I want him on the team as many years as I can.
Right.
But when he made the opening day roster, that was a really big piece of news, which goes to show you, how common the opposite of that is, waiting the extra month.
Exactly.
And just to go back onto the arbitration, not to again bring up my, class I took, the business of the NFL, but so some of the things I learned with that is players, when they represent themselves and they don't have an agent, it typically doesn't go well, because within a negotiation in anything really, sports or job, business, whatever, the other side's always looking to plot the negatives of the opposing side to drive home whatever point they're trying to prove. I know David Robertson did with the represented himself when he signed with the Phillies, and they asked him if he enjoyed that process, and he said, no, I will never do it ever again. Because when you have an agent, it creates a bit of a buffer. The agent isn't telling the player, his client, all the stuff they're saying to the point where, they don't want to hurt the confidence of the player, make him more self-conscious, or make him bitter. Because, at the end of the day, certain players may not have as many suitors as, other guys. But I just kind of found that interesting with the whole arbitration, how in that case, it's, the players hearing the brunt of everything is being said and brought to the table against him. So, and I just know that David Robertson is one of many players who have represented himself throughout the years in free agent process. I can't think of any other ones right off the top of my head. Part of me wants to say maybe Andrew McCutchen did that recently, but I could be way off with that. But it is something that you gotta have thick skin to be able to represent yourself and do so effectively.
Yeah, and it's I can't even imagine having to do it, because it's like you're literally getting into an argument. You're getting into a fight about your own value. And then at the end of that fight, however way it ends, is like, okay, I guess now I'm playing for you. And then you got to go and play for that team, play for that person, So that's,
they sign your checks.
They sign your checks, but you might, if you have some malice or you're not completely happy with the way it went, that could affect your play. Not even on purpose, just subconsciously, where you're like, positively or negatively, you can put a chip on your shoulder. But I mean,
that's the knock on why, a similar reason why some people athletes in general don't want to play in markets such as New York, Boston, or Chicago, or LA, because some people can handle that, and other people maybe, not calling them weak at all whatsoever, but for whatever reason, it just gets to them more easily. It's just everybody's built a little bit different.
Right.
It was just something interesting that I never really thought about until I, was brought up to my attention.
That's beautiful, Sean. Honestly, I mean, beautiful.
Thank you. And to kind of go along with this, there's something of a qualifying offer. You want to take this one?
Me?
You? Yes, you.
Oh, of course. Qualifying offer, as I like to say, apparently. It's a 1-year deal, all right, set at the average of the top 125 salaries in baseball. That is quoted from MLB itself. So this offseason was worth 18.4. Last year was 18.9. So like I said, you take the average of the top 125 salaries in baseball, and that's what a qualifying offer is. Obviously, that's not exactly where it ends. So let's say Sean is on my team. I extend him the qualifying offer. Why would I do that? I would do that because it's not very intuitive. But if I think Sean is going to decline the qualifying offer, that's pretty much the only time I'll extend it to him, which I know it doesn't make any sense. But I extend it to him because if he declines it, what happens is there's a compensation pick attached to him. So because he won't bring his talents back to me when I offered him the average of what the top 125 guys are getting, I'm doing the right thing in this situation as a team, supposedly under the rules. And he declines it, which means I need to be compensated for that because I did all I could do to try and keep the player. So whatever teams does sign him, I get a compensation pick from them. Why would I not offer a qualifying offer to Sean? If I think he's not worth it, right? If I think he'll probably only get 15 million on the open market. So why would I give him 18 for one? Or if I don't want to risk, basically don't want to risk that he accepts it, which is, again, very backwards. How do you feel about that, Sean? That the qualifying offer is more so, I guess, it's supposed to protect the smaller market teams that can't necessarily afford to pay mega contracts.
It's a weird concept. I also want to throw in there, you have to have 6 or more seasons in the major leagues, and it being your first time being a free agent. So you only get a qualifying offer once.
You can only get a qualifying offer once, yes.
Yeah. It is a weird concept. I don't know if other sports have it, or if they do it to the extent that Major League Baseball has it. But it is a very unique thing. It's on one side of the coin, if a player does accept, they're getting paid handsomely. Like Marcus Stroman accepted his qualifying offer from the Mets last year, but he was in a position where he wasn't going to get paid a lot if he opted out, because he opted out of that season because of COVID. So he was kind of in a rare position where it was smart for him to accept it, and then he was able to build his value up and then got a deal from the Cubs this year. It is a really unique thing, and as you said, I don't know how many players accepted the qualifying offer this year, but the vast majority of players declined the qualifying offer. I know Verlander declined it from the Astros and then signed a 2-year contract. That was actually now official, the Verlander contract.
I think there was only 6 offered this year, if I remember correctly. So
it seems to be down from normal. Maybe it was just less players.
It was down for sure.
But yeah,
I don't know.
it's interesting. I know the Mets extended Michael Conforto a qualifying offer, knowing very well he wasn't going to accept, but it was a smart thing to do. They also extended Noah Syndergaard, which I don't know why I don't know what the Angels were thinking with that contract, but either way, it's a really interesting quirk that baseball has that I guess benefits the teams more than anything else. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that kind of gets thrown by the wayside, in upcoming CBA talks.
Yeah. I don't know. It's very interesting. I think it definitely, well, it puts a negative connotation on the player, right? So when you're signing him. Well, I haven't seen that really affect player salaries whatsoever. No player's really not gotten paid because he had a pick attached to him, at least in my mind. I guess maybe more of the mid-tier players it's happened to, but I haven't noticed it, I guess, per se.
I think it also depends on the team's willingness to win.
Exactly.
Like a team that is like in a position like, let's say, Houston, at this point they don't care about the draft pick. They want to sign the best player. But if it's a team like Minnesota Twins that are like could be decent, maybe not, it's probably another obstacle that they probably wouldn't feel comfortable overcoming.
Right. And I just wanted to get into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of it. As Sean said, it can only be offered once. They have 10 days to accept once it's offered. And the compensation picks aren't really standardized. So it depends on what situation the team that offers the qualifying offer is and the team that eventually signs the player. So the team that is offering the qualifying offer, if they're like a revenue sharing team, so certain teams in MLB get revenue sharing. These are the smaller market teams, just because they cannot, their revenues so far. On this has got to be episode 4 where I can't speak. The revenue of
think of the Tampa Bay Rays.
Of the high market teams so far exceeds what the Tampa Bay Rays can make. Okay, so there is some revenue sharing. So if you're a revenue sharing team and you're not over the luxury tax, you will be able to get a better pick. But if the team that signs him is a small market team, then that nulls that, and your pick is like eh. But if you're a shit team, small market team, and like the Yankees sign him and they're over the luxury tax, you can get up to, I believe you can get a late first rounder. The compensation picks are normally in between the first and the second round of the draft. But they get moved based on the situations of the two teams that are interacting with them. Just so.
Beautiful.
The only things that go against it is revenue sharing. Do they revenue share, yes or no, on either side? And are they over the luxury tax, yes or no, on either side? Does that make sense?
Does to me.
Also, one other thing. So if the team that signs him for more than $50 million guaranteed, that benefits the team that offers the qualifying offer, because it just shows that team probably would not have been able to afford the player, but they did all they could to sign him.
Yeah.
So again, it's really just some rules in place to try and get some compensation to small market teams that wouldn't be able to retain those kind of players.
You're on fire today. Just on fire.
I'm trying my best, Sean.
You really are. And you had mentioned luxury tax. That was one of the things you wanted to discuss today.
Yep.
Basically, luxury tax, all other pro sports have a salary cap. Baseball does not. So in an effort to try and avoid having a salary cap, all the while still keeping a competitive balance among teams, like we were saying, between, let's say, the Yankees and the Rays, luxury tax. So if you exceed a certain number, that is determined within, I think every year it changes, I believe. So for 2021, the luxury tax threshold was $210 million.
Mm-hmm.
That has increased by $2 million over the past 3 years. So essentially, if you're above $210 million on your salary for that year, you are taxed on every dollar above that. So it's supposed to be a deterrent for teams to, spend more reasonably. It does, typically for the more, I wouldn't say mid-level teams, but I guess as far as success goes, like, I keep bringing up Minnesota, but they may be more cognizant of that luxury tax as compared to the Yankees or the Mets or the Dodgers, who, bring in more revenue, as we were saying before, and have owners that have deeper pockets. So, and the fact there's a luxury tax also kind of helps the players in their regard. They don't want a salary cap because they want to make as much money as possible. But the luxury tax also kind of helps the owners in a sense so they could tell the players, hey, I want to sign you, but your contract's going to put me X amount of dollars over luxury tax, which is going to cost me this amount of money.
Right.
Essentially, that's what it is. It's like a soft capping, I guess, for lack of a better term.
And as Sean said, not only does it, every dollar that goes over that $210 million mark, you're going to get taxed on. The tax rate increases based off the number of years a club does it in a row. So a lot of times you'll see, like, okay, the Yankees will go over the luxury tax in 2020, but they have to cut people for next year because they can't go over in 2021, because that is where I think it goes like 50% or something eventually.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like you're paying a player like 1.5 times what they're actually worth by signing them, which is very difficult.
Do you know the tax rate with what it's at? Because I think I might have found this here. They for the first time exceeding luxury tax, they must pay a 20% tax on all overages for a club, and for a second consecutive season, it's 30%, and exceeding for 3 or more seasons, as you just said, it's 50% luxury tax.
Yeah,
so
I remember the Yankees being in that situation where they got to 50%, and they were like, I guess it was 2 years, not one, and they were like, we just certainly cannot.
Yeah,
we just cannot do this. We can't play, because they were well over 210, or at that point I think it might have been 190, regardless of the fact. Also, although we all would call it luxury tax, what I learned today is it's not even really called that. It's called a competitive balance tax that you've alluded to a couple times.
Yeah.
Luxury tax is kind of just what us common folk we used to describe it, but it's the competitive balance tax because, as Sean said, it tries to balance out our revenue and make it competitive so that we don't have crazy high market teams signing all the players and small market teams not.
Yeah, it's your little, what kind of hat is that? Is that I don't even, beret? I don't really know. What's
beret, I think.
Yeah. Wonderful, by the way. Just wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was pretty much. Is there anything else on the list that we wanted to talk about?
There's one thing that's not on the list that I wanted to speak about, and that would be the Rule 5 draft. I realized earlier today that we didn't have that on there, so I did a little bit of research. Would you mind if I did a little thing on that?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
So the Rule 5 draft. A lot of people have heard about it, but they might not be familiar with it. So when it first started, believe it or not, it wasn't called the Rule 5 draft. It was just called the annual player selection because it technically wasn't really a draft. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, the first year player draft is technically the Rule 4 draft because it's just the 4th rule in the rule book, and Rule 5 draft is just the 5th rule. So that's just some good history for you. So how can you be available to be picked in the Rule 5 draft? Well, you're not a first year player, right? You're already on a major league system in the minor leagues, most likely. Obviously, definitely, because you can't be on the 40-man roster. So you can't be on the 40-man roster. If you're 18 or younger, you have to have 5 or more minor league seasons. If you're 19 or older, you have to have 4 or more minor league seasons. So these are somewhat older type players. I would say between the ages, you can see someone at 19, but I would say you're probably 20 to 25 years old if you're a Rule 5 pick. Kids get signed at 16 now, so you can be 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You can be 20 for sure, easily. So the way it works is worst to best, so the worst record to the best record. Not every team has to have a pick. You choose to have a pick. If you decide to pick a player, it costs $100,000. And then that player has to stay on your 26-man roster the entire next season, or you can trade them. But then if you trade them, it just has to stay on the next team's 26-man roster, or you can put them on waivers. And if they clear waivers, so no other team picks them up, it can be offered back to the former team that you drafted them from for 50,000, and if that team still doesn't want him for 50K, then he goes to free agency, and anyone can sign him and assign him to the minor leagues again because he's no longer a Rule 5 draft pick. So basically, the point of it is, if you're a shit team and there's a great team with more than 40 good players that they can't keep on their roster, you can draft someone off someone's minor league system for 100K, but you have to make sure that they're on your major league team. So you would only do this if you're like, this person can contribute. Like, he can't even fit in the top 40 on that team, but he can contribute to me right now because he has to stay on your team all year.
It basically seems like another way to, competitive balance kind of move.
Exactly.
It's a unique thing that, you always hear growing up, oh, we got this guy in the Rule 5 draft, and I never really fully understood it until recently.
Aaron Judge was Rule 5 draft.
What was that?
Aaron Judge was Rule 5 draft pick.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. But, baseball's got these weird rules and quirks, and this is just another one of them. Yeah, it is interesting,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Now, the only other thing we kind of had on our sheet, I'm not sure if you want to get into. I'm going to be frank with you guys. I did write Sean trades me Vladimir Guerrero Jr. live on the episode. So I'm not sure if Sean wanted to do that. I know.
It's Dynasty Fantasy League, by the way, folks.
Yes. So we were going to get into our Dynasty League, but now I'm thinking about that. Since we're going to have Mistletoe Matt, a.k.a. Didi's Nuts, next week, who's also in the Dynasty League, I guess we can wait till next week to do that and then do a little bit of the game as well. Episode.
Next week, Dan and I will be in person.
Will we?
We will. And we'll have already one guest, and there's likely going to be another guest who may or may not be related to me.
Kyle.
Yes, my brother Kyle.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
It's hoping your father,
Yeah, maybe he'll join in too. You never know.
Why not? Yeah, that'll be a good week.
Yeah, we'll have in person. That'll be able to, things might flow more easily. It'll be a good time.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for that. Yeah, we'll do that then. Again, I like at the end of the episodes, they get to hear a little bit of behind the scenes, how we decide.
Yeah.
No, good for them.
We should charge them for it, honestly.
I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to bring it up.
I mean, we don't do a lot of stuff for free, and frankly, we don't deserve to do anything for free. But
no, not with the value we provide. By the way, guys, if you want merch, let us know. I'll start pumping out merch.
Yes.
Okay.
We would love to provide merch.
That's right.
Yeah, comment down below. As always, thank you for watching this episode of the 10th Inning Podcast. Follow us on our socials on Instagram at the 10th Inning Pod and on YouTube. Dan will plug them below per usual. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell us you love Dan's hat. Tell us you hated Dan's hat. If you want the mustache back, let us know. We like to interact with our viewers and listeners. And thank you for those who are viewing and listening. And your shirt sizes for the merch, please let us know.
Yeah, just shirt sizes down below.
Yeah.
Might do hats, might do pants, sweatshirts, underwear, whatever you guys, socks, whatever you guys feel you need, we'll get to you.
Yeah,
that's it, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. This was kind of more of an informational, educational episode, which I guess we did say a while back we were going to start doing. Now we're in the off season. I guess we did one. So if you have any questions or you want to hear any topic in this sphere that we forgot or left out, leave that in the comments as well. We'll get to it another time.
Yeah.
Start a little dialogue down there. Ask us questions or ask yourselves questions about the rules. This has been the 10th Inning Podcast. Turn off.